Wherefore, as they would, so to me they've done. For, as they would, so have I done, to have so long hid this lover's heart, to refrain through such cold abstain, unto so great loss, and so many these years of waste away. Well, at any rate, that was the coat warehouse, which experience, let me make it clear, ended, not began, ended, but some 10 days, and not even 11 yet, not even yet 11 full. But on the 11th day, after that, on an early afternoon drive in August, alone in my car, I abused but the steering wheel with my angry soliloquy, which yet seemed somehow heard by all local Latin America. But which experience also, the coat warehouse, let me reiterate, was initiated on the very next day after that. Sleek Chica Monica at the gym made ardent appeal to acquire the part of me that's digity and elicit my debit card commerce. And I think that's it. Oh, wait. Hold on. Never mind. I was wrong. And forgive me that it's necessary I categorize by genre these anecdotal pieces of evidence to keep it all in order. And for a moment I thought that was it, from an economic standpoint, that is. Everything I might cite economically. But I remembered that within a month of leaving the coat warehouse, 27 days to be exact, which time frame I've freshly established via archived emails, as, like I said, this dismal theme has been distracting prior to this day, and I was recently curious as to date in my preoccupation with hate of late. And just prior to the frustrating month, which I would then waste waiting thereafter, all but hired, just like it had happened with the Inn Club, before eventually being fucked over by the Target Corporation, for some 4 weeks. Some 4 weeks after the Wednesday when from the coat warehouse I quit, I had an interview with Wabanzi Community College. It was for, as happy chance would have it, another coveted maintenance man position, and was conducted by two pleasant and polite matronly ladies, secretaries of the administrative staff, to my right hand, at my place at the head of the rectangular conference table, and, to my left, another ovate Latin lump, one of these damn shapeless Spanish masses of severe scorn, and one of Shrek's Hispanic half-hermanos, or one of his countless chud cousins, who oversaw the day-to-day duties of the college's custodial department, for which office the two friendly elderly ladies performed clerical functions, and among which I saw position, and under whom I sought employ. Being economic, and so most pertinently territorial and impersonal between racial dynamic, it would usually be more difficult to gauge, and I likely wasn't getting the job even if I wasn't infamous, insomuch that no one, regardless of the two secretaries' fondness or how charming they might consider him, nobody was getting hired, unless the grouchy guy across the table from the two ladies decided that he was willing to work with said candidate. And I have a sneaking suspicion, call it a hunch about this honcho, that he wasn't much willing to work with already who looked like me and Whitey. He definitely heard of me, though. He just sat there the entire interview, his hands joined together on the table in front of him, fingers interlocked, telling me he wasn't twiddling his thumbs. He stared straight ahead, though, and wore throughout what I can only describe as the most sarcastic, shit-serving smile that I've ever beheld in such setting and circumstance and duration. The only times that he engaged is when I would turn toward him in polite appeal, or to entreat his amicable concurrence, at which instances, maintaining his blithe, condescending smile, he would twist his neck shortly towards me, and nod his head in faint enthusiasm, with eyebrows raised high and wry with sardonic, mocking intent, like, "Oh yeah? Is that right? You were practicing Spanish during your time at the inn? How wonderful." before succinctly replacing where he was facing and resuming his contemptuously trenchant stare directly forward in front of him. Seemingly imperceptive to the dialogue which he was otherwise distinctly detached, but wearing still his farcical smile all the while throughout. At the conclusion of the interview, when the ladies addressed him in wonder whether he had anything else that he'd like to add or remark, he declined, declaring that he had already heard enough. Literally, that he had already heard enough. Prior to the ladies there, well, thank you for coming in, and we'll notify you with our decision within 2 weeks. Let's just say that I left there less than optimistic, and that I was also less than surprised weeks later to discover that my realistic appraisal proved astute, when, via Obanzi's email, I was thanked for my interest, but my occupation rejected. And economically, I think that about does it. All right. Well, I know that such categorizing is trivial, unnecessary, moot, of arbitrary concern and consequence. All the same, though, notwithstanding, while it doesn't exactly qualify either as economic evidence of enmity between Espanol and me, yet it certainly imparted economic ramification, well, hindrance in any event, as I was left no worse to my situation afterward, only obstructed of its betterment, that for minor infraction I was pulled over, and for an inordinate duration roadside detained, on my way to yet another job interview, in the days just between the Coat Warehouse Wednesday and the Wabanzi Juan 2 and me. I was passing through between Aurora and Montgomery when I was stopped. In fact, not very far from where I am right now and where I shall soon pass by on my way. I might have been going 5 over, maybe, at the most, but seemed to me no more than 3. Yet, nonetheless, on a 2-lane main vein through the city's twain, whereabout was so posted, providing for 45 miles per hour. At just a few minutes ahead, before 10 I sped. In the clear blue morning, and with no schools or any walking pedestrian congestion anywhere, as I slightly faster passed. Only, though, allow me another aside, if more I may, just yet to let me say, Mi Dios, good gato avocado, and holy guacamole bless my lips with double dips of Eucharist tortilla chips, and bear my pig Latin about a Latin pig. Utbe, ukfe athe, agfe. And this open goddamn gate, that even the law round yonder speaks with an ESL Spanish accent and listens to non-stop accordion play. Which ugly cartoonish circus noise is hateful and does harm to the ears, yet provides, nonetheless, the primary instrumental set to Latin lyric, and its gimmickry artistry is the only sound that one hears in songs on Spanish stations, which all sound the exact same, and the humorous bumblefuttery of its humpy-dory organ horn buffoonery proves the humble hobby of its art's highest hubris, and upon hearing its howdy-doody humbum, you half expect some big homely old Oscar, the village oaf of some satirical, sweltering, shitty shantytown south of the border, the clumsy, lumbering comic relief, should soon come stumbling out and onto some makeshift stage, and henceforth proceed to trip over his own shoelaces, which somebody, probably that mischievous Humberto, for some reason, tied together. And I don't care how hot your temper, habanero, but nobody, no matter how tinted their windows and decorated with pagan skeletons and skulls, no vato still looks tough, with folksy whistle tones and the strained, sharp sounds of the squeeze box's piercing, stinging, tart, sour ting-twing emitted from the speakers of one's ride. And this hick breed variety of brutish male is all posturing and forever projecting his aggressive masculine prowess, but he listens to luau music, polka band novelty, only with a spicy, zesty lime twist. It's troubling, perplexing. Chalkboard scratches, blunt breath, steam whistle friction, and other harsh disharmonies similar to the accordion car horn aside, I wasn't in a hurry, but was all set to arrive with still plenty of time to spare, and so as I had no reason to rush, I shouldn't have been speeding at all that morning, except but that it's easy to drift swift and go the most in quick coast when one has the whole road alone. Beyond that, they were beams of cherry and blueberry behind my oblivious traveler, which flashing lights also, even during the bright blue morning, caused my startle-surged heart to race, and that it was an officer who followed and required I stop. Either I never saw or don't recall the words printed along the side of the squad car, signifying the distinct juris of his authority, nor did it even cross my mind at the time to deliberately ascertain the department of his affiliation, that whether it was unto Aurora or Montgomery, or perhaps even the village of Oswego that he was sworn, or else his badge endorsed by Kane or Kendall counties, I failed to observe, but denoted only his Hispanic heritage, that his muscle was short, slender, and precise, like Vincent Price's, and that he likely spent extra time in the morning to get his product-infused hair just right, for it was immaculate. And which whole effect rendered an impression of some new Spanish cop persona among the village people. He didn't issue me a citation, which was nice, nor did he hand me for my later reference a written record of the warning with which he let me off, and provided verbally before he allowed me away with my day. Some short days shy of 6 months prior, I bought a 6-month car insurance policy, which was to expire those same short days hence. Before he dismissed me, as he returned my driver's license and proof of insurance, the Primpi Policia acknowledged that there were but days left in the term of my coverage, and gave me fair subsequent warning that if days later he should see me out and about, I better be prepared to be stopped and thusly verified of my renewed indemnity. Which warning I thought was just special, if not example of something ironic, then at the least cognizant of cosmic punchline and humorous reprisal of our stereotypically reversed roles, what with Officer Hombre potentially citing Whitey for driving uninsured. And while I don't know if it would have been lawful for him to later stop me like that, I certainly didn't care to find out. Wherefore, though, and notwithstanding, the occurrence would have been a non-issue, the event a non-event, and inconsequential, except, as I said, I was on my way to a job interview. It was with the Aurora Parks and Public Works Department, and I should have arrived easily on time, no problem, with minutes left to spare, except that also El Capo took his sweet time, and several minutes more than half an hour, to simply retrieve, run, and return my documents before then sending me away, which suggests to me that he knew that time was a factor, which implies, too, that my email is compromised, over which mode of communication the interview was solicited, scheduled, and verified. I'm guessing that it got fucked off by the hicks at Burlington. As the coat warehouse had corresponded congratulations and other relevant information regarding my new hire via its digital address just weeks prior. It was a 10:30 interview, and I showed up sometime barely before 11. When I entered from outside past the front door of the little office building, the chudly chunk of Caucasian chump immediately opposite the threshold that sat fat at the desk, and that's bulbous, and not that he sat well set. He pointed through the window blinds at the person I had just passed as I walked in, and to whom he had awarded the position, of course, an Hispanic young man probably in his early 20s. And rather than simply apologizing and sending me off, instead, the guy inside acknowledged, alluding to my failure to comply with time, looking over to the clock on the wall to his left, my right, along with some short appeal unto pretense and preface like, "But I mean, come on, man. something unto the effect that the job had no time to waste on tardiness anyway. The position entails clearing brush from sidewalks and changing the garbage bags of the trash can receptacles at community parks and other places of a relaxed public forum. And I imagine that time is rarely of the essence. And while this fact certainly does not entitle one to slough off and expect that the person in charge should long endure or habitually stand for such abuse, while I'm certainly aware as well of how poorly it both presents me and speaks towards my expectable ethic, and that nobody of place and position would fail to be personally off-put and put off of any candidate who cannot manage to prove himself timely even for their own interview, still, rather than merely call and try to provide explanation, which would inevitably sound like an untrue excuse, but that he might believe that I didn't just oversleep, I showed my face to spite, in case perchance he might still hear me. After his little reproach, when I very shortly described the incident that impeded me, which of course doesn't sound good either, but the fact that I received no citation might suffice and should testify to the bogus basis of my delay in the first place. Then suddenly the prior tact he lacked. Well, sorry. Unto so I left, again disappointed and still unemployed. It wouldn't surprise me, though, if these components were concocted also, the cop, and the chud at the desk, the chud at the desk, and his choice, the hick that he pointed out. I gotta move positions here. The hick that he pointed out. Just a ploy, like he quits over no little thing, any little thing, or for no reason at all. He can't make it to his own interview. It's not us. The dude's unhireable, and not only undesirable. Because, again, it's all just how convenient. Not just the beige man behind the badge, but when he stopped me and for how long. And then I was less let than made to see the person hired instead of me. And because there are still sides to all this, nonetheless, and they go to efforts to portray and so influence perceptions about me. Blah. Blah. Bah humbug. But big deal. And about then I began selling my bodily fluid, that is, began selling my blood plasma, bodily fluid. Then Ubanzi, weeks later, and before the bullseye would then fuck over my October. Then a couple endless weeks at the Busy Bee, prior to driving now alone with me. In any event, though, and naturally, insomuch that it comprises virtually the whole spectrum of my relevant social outlets, other than the aforementioned plasma center and the 2 weekly visits allowable by law, except for lucky sevens like these, which, if I should disregard the morning's unpleasantries, and else decide to give this weekend a go, and if my aunt should again prove generous with her transport, shall afford me 3, in that I've already bled successfully once this week. Wednesday evening, after my car fucked off Wednesday morning, so occasioning about a good a time as any to happily call it quits, and for this bumbling wasp to buzz away from the Busy Bee. But which forum, the Plasma Center, in terms of potential prospective coupling, aside from the phlebotomists who haven't much idle time for idle chat, is something like going fishing in the sewer. Anyhow, though, as it's the only place I go, and as the gym is a bubbling cauldron of testosterone and vainglorious exertion anyway, and to begin with, it's only logical then that it's at the gym where grouchy gauchos have shown me the most aggression. But indeed, and even so, that following after my poignant, astute, relevant, elegant, and altogether insightful anthropological dissertation, to which I treated listeners one August afternoon, utterly alone in my car all the while, then Monica's persistent dissembling pursuit on the 3rd day later, over the next 2 weeks, I want to say, or a little more, within the span of 17 days maybe after that, 3 separate incidents, in escalating intensity of instigation, in which they attempted to antagonize me, presumably, onto some angry, hostile confrontation, or else some explosive, violent outburst. I do this every fucking time. Think